Errol Spence came into this fight as the taller man, the unified champ, and the favorite to test Terence Crawford like never before. But after what we saw, fans are still asking, did Spence even win any rounds? Today we're breaking it all down, round by round, using the official scoring criteria to uncover the real story behind Spence versus Crawford. Make sure to stick around until the end. You might be surprised by what my round by round scoring reveals. Round 1. Clean punching. In the first round, Terence Crawford outlands Errol Spence 7 clean punches to only 1 by Errol Spence. Clean punching, 10 points to 7, Terence Crawford. Effective aggression. Neither Terence Crawford nor Errol Spence were particularly aggressive, although Errol Spence did initiate a bit more. It wasn't very effective though, since Bud Crawford used subtle defensive movements to make much of Spence's varied attempts miss ever so slightly or be blocked. Effective aggression, 9 points for Errol Spence, 8.5 for Terence Crawford. Ring generalship. Terence Crawford controlled both action and tone for almost the entire round. Errol Spence was looking for different ways to close distance and use his reach to land, but Terence Crawford had defensive answers for everything, including both foot movement and defensive moves right in front of Spence. The one time Errol Spence started to jab his way in to take control of the action, Bud Crawford used a clinch to put an immediate end to it. Effective aggression, 10-9, Terence Crawford. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves done in this round to avoid punches and when they happened. If we categorize them all, I gave the high guard to Crawford, ducking 7 points to both fighters, bobbing and weaving to Crawford, parrying 8 points to both fighters, blocking to Crawford, footwork to Crawford, and clinching to Crawford. Taking the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 9.4 points to Terence Crawford and 8.143 points to Errol Spence, a blowout round in round 1 for Terence Crawford, 10-9. And as we go through this fight, as always, we'll take a look at how my score compares against those official judges at ringside, and in this case they are Tim Cheatham, David Sutherland, and Steve Weisfeld. Tim Cheatham gave that round to Errol Spence, 10-9, David Sutherland gave it to Terence Crawford, 10-9, and Steve Weisfeld gave it to Errol Spence, 10-9. Round 2. Clean punching. In this round, Errol Spence outlands Terence Crawford, 12 clean landed punches to 10, the running total now in the fight thus far 17 for Crawford, 13 for Spence. Clean punching, 10-9, Errol Spence. Effective aggression. At 2:33, Errol Spence would have landed a left hook to the body, but he hit the rope behind Crawford before his hand could hook. At 48 seconds, a left kidney punch by Spence, questionable on whether it was on purpose, I'd give a soft warning. Errol Spence was pressing forward and initiating more for most of the round. He outlanded Terence Crawford 4-0 in the first minute, 5-2 in the second minute, and then Bud Crawford ramped it up in the third minute, demonstrated that he wasn't affected by the aggression, due in part to how much of it he was defending well, and outlanded Spence 8-2 in the last minute, culminating in this amazing combo to get the knockdown in a round he was likely losing up until that point. Effective aggression, 9.5 Terence Crawford, 9 points for Errol Spence. Ring generalship. Errol Spence was controlling action and tone until about 120, where we saw a visible shift in Terence Bud Crawford, who started offering more offense, almost shutting down Spence's offense altogether, and landing jarring repeated jabs that culminated in the knockdown. Errol Spence controlled action and tone for a few seconds longer than Terence Crawford, but Bud Crawford's control was more dramatic, and he seemed to turn it on at will, which is the definition of control in a way. Ring generalship, 10-9 Terence Crawford. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves that happened in this round to avoid punches and when they happened. If we categorize them, I gave the high guard to Terence Crawford, ducking to Errol Spence, bobbing and weaving to Errol Spence, parrying 8 points to both fighters, blocking to Terence Crawford, footwork to Terence Crawford, and clinching to Terence Crawford. Using the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 9.309 points to Terence Crawford and 9.129 points to Errol Spence. Would have been a very razor-thin, narrow victory in round 2 for Terence Crawford, but because of his knockdown of Errol Spence in this round, it's a 10-8 round for Terence Crawford. And unlike some illegal blows which could be subjective, knockdowns don't lie, and all the judges at ringside need to agree with me on this one, 10-8 Terence Crawford. Round 3. Clean punching. In this round, Terence Crawford outlands Errol Spence 10 clean landed punches to 6. The total in the fight thus far, 27 for Crawford, 19 for Errol Spence. Clean punching, 10-9, Terence Crawford. Effective aggression. At 1:30 on the clock, Errol Spence jabs Terence Crawford's thigh, but it didn't look malicious. I think it just strayed. I'd give a soft warning for that one. At 1:27, a rabbit punch by Spence. I'd give a soft warning for that one. Errol Spence was more aggressive throughout the round, but not very effective after the first minute where he made Crawford have to defend hard. In the remainder of the round, Spence continued the aggressive pursuit, but went long periods between landing cleanly due to Crawford's subtle defense and much more impactful landed punches that also landed steadily throughout the round. Effective aggression, 9.5 points to both fighters. Ring generalship. Errol Spence controlled action and tone in the first minute, but then Terence Crawford took control in the remainder of the round by using subtle defense to make Spence miss. I don't know if Terence Crawford's punches were actually harder, but they certainly seemed to affect Errol Spence much more than Spence's punches affected him. Ring generalship, 10-9 Terence Crawford. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves done in this round to avoid punches and when they happened. If we categorize them, I gave high guard to Terence Crawford, ducking 9 points to both fighters, bobbing and weaving to Errol Spence, parrying 8 points to both fighters, blocking to Terence Crawford, footwork to Terence Crawford, and clinching 8 points to both fighters. Taking the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 9.695 points to Terence Crawford and 9.019 points to Errol Spence, a comfortable win in round 3 for Terence Crawford, 10-9. And I now have the fight 30-26. Judges Tim Cheatham and Steve Weisfeld both gave that round to Terence Crawford and have the fight 29-27. And Judge David Sutherland gave that round to Errol Spence and has the fight also 29-27 because he didn't give Spence that first round that the other judges did. Round 4. Clean punching. In this round, Terence Crawford outdoes Errol Spence 19 clean-landed punches to 11. The total in the fight thus far 46 for Terence Crawford, 30 for Errol Spence. Clean punching, 10-9 Terence Crawford. Effective aggression. At 221, Spence with a left hook low, I'd give a soft warning. At 121, a right hook to the body low by Spence, a hard warning now. Although both fighters were effectively aggressive in the first minute, Errol Spence was more so. After that though, Terence Crawford clearly had a greater effect with his aggression than Errol Spence did, not only because he landed more punches, but Spence reacted like he was being hit hard, whereas Crawford didn't react at all when Spence landed. Perhaps Crawford's body just has an insane pain tolerance. Effective aggression, 10-9 Terence Crawford. Ring generalship. Errol Spence pushed the pace and tone in the first minute, but like previous rounds, Terence Crawford took over after that. Have another look at the even distribution of clean-landed punches by Crawford throughout the round compared to Spence. Ring generalship, 10-9 Terence Crawford. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves done in this round to avoid punches and when they happened. I gave the high guard to Terence Crawford, ducking to Errol Spence, bobbing and weaving to Errol Spence, parrying 8 points to both fighters, blocking to Errol Spence, footwork to Errol Spence, and clinching to Errol Spence. Spence with a much more well-rounded defensive round here, but it was maybe because he was being punched at more. Taking the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 9.686 points to Terence Crawford and 9.029 points to Errol Spence, a comfortable win in round 4 for Terence Crawford, 10-9. And I now have the fight 40-35 in favor of Terence Crawford. Judges Tim Cheatham, David Sutherland, and Steve Weisfeld all gave that round to Terence Crawford as well, and all have the fight 39-36 Terence Crawford. Round 5, clean punching. And in this round, Terence Crawford leads it by a long shot, 22 clean-landed punches to only 9 for Errol Spence. The total in the fight thus far, 68 for Crawford, 39 for Spence. Clean punching, 10-8 Terence Crawford. Effective aggression. At 38 seconds, a right hook low by Spence, I'd give a hard warning. Errol Spence was aggressive for most of the round. To his credit, he keeps trying hard no matter what he's being hit with, but his aggression was not effective in the sense that it rarely made Crawford change what he was doing. Bud Crawford did change tactics several times, but it looked like they were all part of his bag rather than being forced into them. Terence Crawford landed many more punches, but again, each one had much more effect on Errol Spence than vice versa. You can see in Spence's reactions to the punches versus Crawford's non-reactions and in Errol's accumulated facial damage. Effective aggression, 9.5 points to both fighters. Ring generalship. Although Errol Spence was pushing the pace for more of the round, Terence Crawford was turning him, using great defense and more jarring punches to control Errol Spence's attacks. Spence kept coming, even landing the bulk of his punches in the last 46 seconds, but he was seldom able to create an uncomfortable situation for Terence Crawford. Bud Crawford seems to have so many alternate plans that he is seldom not in control of action and tone. Ring generalship, 10-9 Terence Crawford. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves done in this round to avoid punches and when they happened. I gave high guard to Terence Crawford, ducking to Errol Spence, bobbing and weaving to Terence Crawford, parrying 8 points to both fighters, blocking to Terence Crawford, footwork to Terence Crawford, and clinching to Terence Crawford. Taking the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 9.695 points to Terence Crawford and 8.719 points to Errol Spence, a 10-9 round comfortably for Terence Crawford. And I now have the fight, still a shutout, 50-44 Terence Crawford. All 3 judges at ringside gave that round to Terence Crawford again, and have the fight 49-45 Terence Crawford. Round 6, clean punching. In this round, it was a tie. Both fighters landed 17 clean landed punches. The running total in the fight thus far for Terence Crawford, 85, Errol Spence, 56. Clean punching, 10 points to both fighters. Effective aggression. At 211, Spence had a couple body punches that looked like they landed, but in super slow-mo, they grazed by without landing. Crawford's jab to the head at 141 landed with shocking impact that displaced Spence's body a lot. It's amazing that Spence was able to recover fast enough to bob away from the next punch. Errol Spence had some success very early, then a long lull without being able to land, then landed super consistently in the last minute and 29 seconds. He definitely has some dog in him. Spence was much more aggressive than Crawford and quite effective in making Crawford fight harder to keep him off. Crawford had the more impactful punches, but Spence kept coming. Effective aggression, Terence Crawford 9, Errol Spence 9.5. Ring generalship. Errol Spence controlled action and tone for more of the round, aggressively attacking Terence Crawford with purpose. Crawford did a lot of great defending and landed some thudding shots because he's a great counterpuncher with impeccable timing, but he was working hard within the pace and tone that Spence was pushing. Positives for both fighters in this category, but I edge it to Spence. Ring generalship, 10-9, Errol Spence. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves done in this round to avoid punches and when they happened. If we categorize them, I gave the high guard to Terence Crawford, ducking to Errol Spence, bobbing and weaving to Errol Spence, parrying 8 points to both fighters, blocking to Terence Crawford, footwork to Terence Crawford, and clinching to Errol Spence. If we take the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 9.3 points to Terence Crawford and 9.610 points to Errol Spence. Finally, a 10-9 round in favor of Errol Spence in round 6. And I now have the fight the same as every judge at ringside does who actually gave that round to Terence Crawford, but we all have the fight 59-54 now, Terence Crawford. Round 7. Clean punching. In this round, Terence Crawford slightly outdoes Errol Spence, 14 clean landed punches to 11. The total in the fight thus far, 99 for Terence Crawford, 67 for Errol Spence. Clean punching, 10-9, Terence Crawford. Effective aggression. At 236, a kidney punch by the pursuing Terence Crawford, I'd give a soft warning there. At 205, a low left hook on the hip by Errol Spence, I'd give him a hard warning there. And then at 203 on the clock, in a strange turn of events, Errol Spence lands a right hook to the head, and then is pressing his glove and wrist into Terence Crawford's face to position it so he can hit him with the left hook, which missed due to Crawford's incredible reflexes. Then Crawford backed into the ropes, Spence pursued and hit him with a left hook to his head, while Crawford was already countering him with a right uppercut to the head. He followed with another right over the top of Spence's head that grazed it, but I think that sneaky uppercut did the damage, and we have a knockdown! At 142, a rabbit punch around the high guard by Crawford, I'd give a soft warning to him, and then with only 2 seconds remaining, Terence Crawford with a right hook to the head that makes Errol Spence turn sideways and then crumble. Aggression doesn't get much more effective than this. Second knockdown in the round. Effective aggression, 10 points Terence Crawford, 8.5 Errol Spence. Ring generalship. Errol Spence was actually leading on clean punches landed at 113 remaining, but then he never landed again. You got the sense that Terence Crawford is impervious to anything Spence is trying and unleashes whenever he wants to with guaranteed impact and success. He dominated action and tone. Ring generalship, 10-8 Terence Crawford. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves that happened in this round to avoid punches and when they occurred. If we categorize them, I gave high guard to Errol Spence, ducking to Errol Spence, bobbing and weaving to Errol Spence, parrying 8 points to both fighters, blocking to Terence Crawford, footwork to Terence Crawford, and clinching 8 points to both fighters. Taking the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 9.771 points to Terence Crawford and 8.633 points to Errol Spence, a blowout in round 7 even before the deductions for the 2 knockdowns, and so the round ends up 10-7 Terence Crawford. And of course, again, the 3 judges at ringside had no choice but to award Terence Crawford the round 10-7 due to the 2 knockdowns he inflicted on Errol Spence in this round, so we all have the fight still the same, 69-61. Round 8, clean punching. In this round, Terence Crawford outlands Errol Spence 15 clean landed punches to only 6. The total in the fight thus far, 114 for Crawford, 73 for Errol Spence. Clean punching, 10-8 Terence Crawford. Effective aggression. At 12 seconds remaining, Spence with a left hook to the thigh. I'll chalk it up to fatigue and not intentional and malicious, but that's a hard warning. Terence Crawford was the substantially more effective aggressor. He pressed forward much more and had the still determined Errol Spence moving away in the second half of the round. Whether Spence was standing with Crawford or moving back, Crawford was landing hard, precise, jarring punches again. Errol Spence tried to be aggressive, but this aggression was not very effective in the sense that it had no effect. Crawford's defense was, I'm going to say it, impregnable. Effective aggression, 10 points Terence Crawford, 8.5 Errol Spence. Ring generalship. Again, Errol Spence is still trying hard, but he's just not landing often enough. And when he does, they don't bother Terence Crawford at all. So when we discuss control of action and tone, Spence tried to initiate those things, but whenever he wanted, Crawford just cracked him with hard, impeccably timed punches, as if Spence wasn't doing anything to him. Ring generalship, 10-8, Terence Crawford. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves that happened in the 8th round to avoid punches and when they occurred. If we categorize them, I gave high guard to Terence Crawford, ducking to Errol Spence, bobbing and weaving to Crawford, parrying 8 points to both fighters, blocking 9 points to both fighters, footwork to Crawford, and clinching to Spence. Taking the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 9.714 points to Terence Crawford and 8.190 points to Errol Spence, a blowout victory in round 8 for Terence Crawford, 10-9. And so therefore, I ended up with this fight at 79-70 before the brutal stoppage in round 9. I'm not going to go ahead and score a partial round, but I think it goes without saying if you watch this fight, Errol Spence was certainly not winning round 9 at the time of the stoppage. And I think that's putting it lightly. So now the time has come, the time you've all been waiting for, the time that we answer the question, Spence versus Crawford, did Spence win any rounds? And the answer is, yes, he did. I gave him 1. I didn't give him the 1st or the 3rd like the various judges did, though. I ended up giving him round 6. And not by any kind of blowout margin either. So of course, that begs the question, were any of the other rounds close enough to overturn and get Spence some more rounds than just 1? Well, let's have a look. Round 1 was a blowout for Crawford. Round 2 was actually razor thin close, but then Crawford got a knockdown on Spence that makes the traditional scoring based on the 4 criteria basically irrelevant. Round 3 was very comfortable for Crawford. Round 4 was very comfortable for Crawford. Round 5 was very comfortable for Crawford. Round 6 was somewhat close, but that's the one I gave Spence already. And then round 7 and 8 were blowout victories for Crawford. So the answer is no, we cannot overturn any other rounds to give Spence. It's just the one round, round 6 on my scorecard. So how did the judges have it? Well, they had it the same as I did, 79-70. They only gave Errol Spence 1 round. Depending on the judge, it was either round 1 or round 3. And we can have a look on the bottom of the screen at some interesting statistics. The maximum punches landed in any round by Terence Crawford was 22. By Errol Spence, it was 17. The minimum landed in any round by Crawford was 7 punches, and by Errol Spence, it was 1. I think it was the first round. The average punches through 8 rounds in this fight for Crawford was 14. For Errol Spence, it was 9. And again, the total landed punches 114-73 in favor of Terence Crawford. And so at this time, I usually award the gold star to the judges who got it right. They all got it right according to my scorecard, 79-70. But 2 of the judges, Judge Tim Cheatham and Steve Weisfeld, get slightly smaller stars because they gave Errol Spence round 1, which I felt was not even close and was a blowout for Terence Crawford. Judge David Sutherland gets a little bit bigger star because he gave him round 3, which was a bit closer. If you want to support the channel by rocking the Who Really Won gear, it's available now at the link that's on your screen right now, and I'll place this link in the description as well for your convenience. As always, we greatly appreciate all of your support. And now you know the truth of whether Errol Spence Jr. won any rounds against Terence Crawford and the rounds that really mattered in this fight. Did your score match mine, or did you see it differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to know how you scored this fight up until the brutal stoppage happened in round 9. And if you stuck around till the end, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss future fight breakdowns where we separate the hype from the truth and find out who really won. And have a look at the 2 links that are popping up on your screen right now. The one on the left is a playlist of other detailed, controversial fight breakdowns, and the one on the right is my scoring algorithm explained in detail so you can learn to score like a pro. I'll catch you again next time.